Consistency is often perceived as something that can only be achieved when motivation is at its peak. We imagine ourselves as burning embers, fired by inspiration, pushing us forward through obstacles. But here's the harsh truth: motivation is fleeting, and if we only relied on it, we would soon find ourselves adrift in the sea of apathy, unable to row toward our goals. Success is often thought to be a product of fleeting bursts of inspiration, grand moments of motivation that propel us toward our goals with the speed and power of a raging river. This idea, while attractive, is deceptive. We imagine success as something that happens during those moments when we are particularly driven, when the fire inside us burns brightest. But this kind of motivation is like a wave that rises, cresting with excitement, only to break and fade away. What remains is often a sense of disappointment, for the motivation that once seemed so strong has dissipated, leaving us in the still, quiet waters of inertia. If we allow ourselves to believe that success depends on motivation alone, we will find ourselves constantly chasing that fleeting spark. We will wait for the perfect moment when our enthusiasm aligns with our actions, but that perfect moment rarely comes. The problem is, motivation can be as capricious as the weather. It might be there one moment, and the next, it's gone. To rely on it is to gamble with uncertainty. But there is another way, one that does not depend on the shifting tides of motivation. This path, though less glamorous, is more reliable and far more powerful. It is the path of consistency. Consistency is not dependent on how we feel on any given day. It is not swayed by the emotional fluctuations that motivate us in the short term. Instead, consistency is a quiet force, a steady presence that continues even when motivation has long since packed its bags and left. The key to this approach is recognizing that success, particularly sustained success, does not arise from sporadic bursts of effort, but from a constant, ongoing effort to move forward, no matter the circumstances. It is the small, seemingly insignificant actions, repeated day after day, that build the foundation for lasting achievement. It is the discipline to show up, even when the excitement of the initial spark has worn off, that leads to progress. Take, for instance, the most common tasks we do in our daily lives. Many of us wake up each morning, even when we don't feel like it, to carry out necessary responsibilities. We may not be thrilled to go to work, to handle obligations, or to take care of daily chores, but we do it because it is part of the rhythm of life. The task may be mundane, and the motivation might not always be present, but we persist. That persistence is the key to making progress over time. Without it, the tasks would remain undone, the goals would remain unmet. It is not the great moments of motivation that make us who we are, it is the quiet, consistent actions we take when motivation is nowhere to be found. Consistency works because it builds a habit. A habit is a framework within which we operate, even in the absence of external motivation. It's something we do so regularly that it becomes second nature. Think about brushing your teeth. It's something most people do automatically, without much thought or feeling of inspiration. You don't wait until you feel particularly motivated to brush your teeth. It's simply something you do every day, because you know it's necessary. The same principle applies to everything we hope to achieve. When we allow ourselves to fall into the trap of only acting when motivation strikes, we make the mistake of thinking that progress can only happen under ideal circumstances. In truth, the very process of repetition, the very act of doing something even when we don't feel like it, is what leads to growth. It is this consistent action, done regardless of how we feel, that builds the foundation for eventual success. If you wait for motivation to move forward, you will find yourself constantly stalling. You'll wait for the spark that rarely comes, and even when it does, it is often too brief to carry you through the entire journey. Now, consider what happens when we focus on consistency. By making consistency the goal, we remove the emotional uncertainty that surrounds motivation. We free ourselves from the tyranny of needing to feel a certain way before we can act. Instead, we create a system in which action itself becomes the most important thing. When action becomes the goal, it does not matter whether or not we are feeling motivated. The action, the work, the consistency, these things are sufficient in themselves. And consistency breeds a kind of quiet confidence. It doesn't rely on grand gestures or sudden bursts of brilliance. It is the steadfast, ongoing commitment to doing the work, even when the results are not immediately visible. It is the belief that what you are doing is valuable, even if you cannot see the fruits of your labor right away. Success is not achieved in one grand moment, it is the result of cumulative effort over time. Like planting a seed and nurturing it with small, consistent actions, the results eventually come, though they may take time. Consider the idea of training for a marathon. It is not one long run that will get you across the finish line, it is the countless miles of consistent training. Each run is not motivated by an overwhelming sense of excitement, but it is necessary to build endurance. In the absence of motivation, it is the simple act of showing up each day, committing to the task at hand, that prepares you for the final race. Without this consistency, no amount of motivation could possibly bring success. So why does consistency work? Because it operates independent of the fickle nature of motivation. Motivation can be unpredictable, here one moment and gone the next. But consistency doesn't require external validation or enthusiasm. It simply asks for commitment and discipline. It's like the steady ticking of a clock, relentless in its passing, without care for the time of day. It simply keeps going regardless of the distractions or temptations to stop. Consistency is what turns the impossible into the possible. It is what turns a mountain into a series of small, manageable steps. It is the slow accumulation of effort that, over time, creates something greater than what we could achieve through occasional bursts of intense effort. It's not about being inspired all the time. It's about showing up and doing the work, even when we don't feel like it. That's what makes consistency the true key to success. If we are to rely on motivation alone, we will spend our lives waiting for the right moment, for the right mood, for the perfect set of circumstances. But motivation is fleeting, and the perfect moment rarely comes. Instead of waiting, we must act. We must act even when the fire of motivation is nowhere to be found, even when we're tired, and even when it seems easier to give up. In the doing, we create the motivation. In the consistency, we build the strength that carries us through, not only to the finish line, but to lasting success. Success is often thought to hinge on the grand goals we set for ourselves. We envision a future where we've reached our destination, and it feels exhilarating just to think about that moment. However, the truth is that goals alone, without the framework to support them, are mere wishes. A goal without a habit is like a car without an engine. It may look good, but it will go nowhere. That is why creating habits is paramount. They are the engine that drives us toward our goals, even when motivation fades. The beauty of habit is that it takes the reliance off of fleeting feelings and puts the focus on the actions themselves. When we try to rely on motivation to fuel our progress, we often set ourselves up for failure because motivation is unreliable. Some days we wake up feeling inspired, ready to tackle the world, but other days we feel tired, uninspired, or distracted. This is where habits step in. A habit is an automatic action, one that doesn't depend on how we feel on any given day. Once a habit is established, it becomes part of our routine, ingrained in our day-to-day life, and we perform it with little to no thought. For instance, think of someone who has made it a habit to exercise every morning. It's not that they wake up thrilled to work out each day, it's that they've created a habit that dictates their actions. The goal of becoming fit might have motivated them in the beginning, but it is the consistency of their exercise routine, now embedded in their daily life, that continues to drive them forward. Even on the days when they feel less than motivated, they still get up and go through the motions because the habit has already been established. This kind of consistency doesn't rely on sudden bursts of excitement, it simply becomes part of who they are. Creating habits works because it removes the need for motivation altogether. Motivation is something we have little control over. It can rise and fall with the changing tides of life. But habits are something we create deliberately. By repeating an action over and over again, it becomes second nature. Whether it's getting up early, reading daily, or dedicating time to a particular project, these habits build a framework that allows us to move forward without needing to summon motivation every time. Building habits, however, requires intentionality. We cannot simply wish to be consistent, we must actively create the environment in which consistency can thrive. This means starting small, focusing on actions that are achievable and sustainable. It might not seem like much at first, a small step, a brief moment of effort, but over time, this cumulative action creates a foundation upon which greater achievements can be built. The consistency of the small actions is what sets the stage for more significant results. As we repeat these actions, they become woven into the fabric of our daily lives, and the impact they have grows exponentially. In essence, habits shift the focus from motivation to action. Instead of waiting for the right mood or the perfect burst of energy, we simply act. and in the acting, we create the progress we seek. This is how true success is built, not on the wings of fleeting inspiration, but on the solid, reliable foundation of habits that carry us forward even when our motivation is nowhere to be found. The idea that struggle is an inherent part of any meaningful endeavor is something that cannot be overlooked. In fact, it is often the very struggle itself that shapes our success. We live in a world that is quick to seek comfort and avoid difficulty, but it is through the trials, the obstacles, and the hard moments that we are refined. Success is not born from ease, nor does it come from avoiding discomfort. It is forged in the fires of struggle. The very nature of progress demands that we face difficulties and push through them, for it is only through the process of overcoming adversity that true growth happens. When faced with struggle, many people are tempted to abandon their efforts, convinced that the difficulty is a sign they are on the wrong path. They believe that if something is truly meant to be, it should come with ease. But this is a misconception. If we allow ourselves to be swayed by the pain of struggle, we will never experience the rewards that come from enduring it. Struggle is not a signal to stop it, it is a necessary part of the journey. Without it, there is no opportunity for growth. The easiest path rarely leads to the most fulfilling destination. Struggle sharpens us in ways that comfort never could. When we face difficulties, we are forced to adapt, to stretch beyond what we thought we were capable of. Every challenge, every roadblock is a chance to develop resilience, creativity, and strength. These are qualities that cannot be cultivated in times of ease. It is only when we are stretched, when we are tested by the weight of the task at hand, that we discover the depth of our potential. The more difficult the task, the greater the opportunity for personal growth. The discomfort we feel in these moments is often a reflection of how much we are learning. It is easy to think that we should stop when things get tough, to wish that the road were smoother, but in doing so we miss the lesson. The struggle itself is a teacher, one that reveals what we are truly capable of and pushes us to a higher level. Without struggle, we would never know what lies beyond our current limitations. It is the process of pushing past our own perceived boundaries that allows us to grow into something greater. Consider, for example, the process of learning a new skill or pursuing a new project. In the beginning, it can feel like a struggle. You may face failures, setbacks, and frustrations. You may doubt your ability and wonder if you will ever succeed. But it is through these moments that you build the foundation of mastery. Each failure is a stepping stone, each setback a lesson that helps refine your approach. The process of overcoming these difficulties is what sharpens your mind, builds your character, and strengthens your resolve. You learn, you grow, and you become more equipped to handle the next challenge that comes your way. There is no progress without struggle. The mere act of striving towards something meaningful will, by its nature, involve obstacles. It is not a sign that you are doing something wrong, rather, it is a sign that you are doing something right. It is a sign that you are on the path toward growth, that you are pushing beyond your comfort zone and into new territory. Success is not achieved by avoiding difficulty, but by embracing it, learning from it, and moving forward despite it. It is important, however, to recognize that the struggle should not be seen as something to be feared or avoided. While the temptation to quit may arise when things get tough, it is essential to understand that it is precisely in those moments that the most significant growth occurs. Embracing the struggle means acknowledging that discomfort is not the enemy, it is an ally. The more you are willing to lean into the challenge, to confront it head on, the more you will develop the strength and resilience necessary to continue moving forward. Many people give up at the first sign of difficulty, assuming that the path ahead should be smooth and without resistance. But true progress comes when you learn to push past the discomfort, when you persevere even when the road is long and the task seems insurmountable. Each step taken through struggle builds the muscle of perseverance, and that perseverance is what ultimately leads to success. It is the ability to continue on in the face of difficulty, to stay the course even when the odds seem stacked against you, that separates those who succeed from those who give up too soon. Struggle, then, is not something to be feared. It is an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, and more capable. It is an integral part of the journey toward success, and it is in overcoming these difficulties that we find the true meaning of achievement. Without struggle, success would be hollow, for it is the very act of facing and overcoming challenges that makes success worthwhile. It is the struggle that defines us, shapes us, and prepares us for the future. So when faced with difficulty, remember that it is not a sign to stop. It is simply a sign that you are on the right path, and that the rewards of persistence and perseverance lie just ahead. In our fast-paced world, where everything seems to be moving at breakneck speed, it's easy to overlook the power of small actions. We tend to think that success is about making large, dramatic moves or achieving instant results. We imagine that great success requires monumental effort or a single, transformative event. But the truth is, success is often the result of small, consistent actions that accumulate over time, building momentum in ways we can't always see in the beginning. Each small action, though it may seem insignificant in isolation, contributes to a larger process of growth and progress. It is easy to dismiss these small efforts as not worth the time or energy, especially when the results aren't immediately visible. However, it's in these moments of seemingly mundane effort that the foundation for success is laid. Whether it's writing a few sentences every day toward a book, dedicating 10 minutes a day to learning a new language, or consistently exercising for just a short period each morning, these small actions begin to compound, forming the habits that eventually lead to significant achievements. One of the key reasons why small actions are so powerful is because they are sustainable. Large, sweeping efforts often burn brightly but fade quickly, leaving us drained and exhausted. They require bursts of energy that can't always be maintained, and after the initial thrill of achievement fades, we find ourselves struggling to keep up. In contrast, small actions are manageable. They don't demand too much of us at once, making it easier to maintain consistency over the long term. By focusing on smaller, achievable tasks, we create a rhythm that becomes ingrained in our daily lives. Over time, these small tasks add up to something much larger. Consistency, especially in small actions, also keeps us connected to our goals even when motivation is low. It's easy to get excited about a new project when the initial burst of motivation is high, but as time goes on, the enthusiasm tends to wane. This is where small actions become invaluable. When we commit to doing something every day, no matter how small the effort, we create a sense of routine and discipline that helps us keep going, even when the initial excitement has faded. We don't need to rely on motivation to push us forward. The habit of small, consistent actions takes over, quietly but steadily moving us toward our goals. In addition, small actions help to build momentum. At first, the results of our efforts may seem minimal or even non-existent, but over time they begin to snowball. One small task completed leads to another, and before we know it, we've made significant progress. This momentum is critical for long-term success. It propels us forward even when we don't feel like moving. Once we've built the habit of consistent effort, the small actions become part of our identity. They no longer feel like a burden or something we have to force ourselves to do. They simply become a natural part of our daily life. The power of small actions also lies in their ability to focus our energy. When we focus on completing small tasks, we avoid becoming overwhelmed by the enormity of the goal. A large project can often seem intimidating, and the thought of having to do it all at once can lead to procrastination or avoidance. But by breaking it down into smaller, manageable steps, we reduce the pressure and make the task feel more attainable. The key is not to focus on the end result, but to stay present in the process, committing to the small steps that will eventually get us there. By embracing small actions, we begin to understand that success is not just about the big moments, but about the steady, quiet work done day after day. It is not the dramatic leaps that create lasting change, but the slow, deliberate progress made through consistent, incremental actions. It is the accumulation of small steps that eventually leads to great results.